Gibraltar is a peninsula strategically located at the southern tip of Spain, at the mouth of the Mediterranean. A limestone rock mass stretching 2.5 miles long and 1 mile wide, its peak is 1,400 feet above sea level. Gibraltar has its own airport, beaches, marina, and wild apes. Gibraltar is a British colony which maintains a great deal of its own autonomy. Much of the economy here evolves around Gibraltar's offshore tax status, which has attracted many of the foreign banks. It's an unusually harmonious and close-knit society where Hindus, Christians, Muslims, and Jews live together in peace. With a small population of 30,000, it's a place where everyone gets to know each other. 600 Jews live in Gibraltar, small in number, but very united and organized. The Jewish community of Gibraltar, in many ways, represents a microcosm of world Jewry. Yet, in many ways, it's unique, unlike any Jewish community in the world. The community has enjoyed excellent relations with the community at large. On Shabbat, after synagogue, when the Jewish people stroll up and down Main Street, it's not unusual for a non-Jewish friend to also share the traditional greeting of Shabbat Shalom. The Jews of Gibraltar make their livelihood in many ways. Some maintain generation-old family businesses, others as shopkeepers, truck drivers, policemen, professionals, business executives, even an artist or two. For the most part, it's a wealthy community. The Jews of Gibraltar enjoy a high standard of living. 17 has the numeric value in the Hebrew language as the word good. 18 has the equivalent value to the word life, and the Jews here do live a good life. When Gibraltar gets too small, many cross the Spanish frontier, especially during the hot summer months, to villas and apartments on the Costa del Sol, the Spanish Riviera. Since the time of the Jewish expulsion from Spain in 1492, relations have not been great between the Jewish people and Spain. Although Spain established diplomatic relations with Israel in 1986, Israelis, unlike Europeans or North Americans, are limited to only 3 entrances into Spain, which makes traveling in the region and life for an Israeli in Gibraltar a hardship. It is from here that the Jewish community is run by its president, Chaim Levy. Hassan & Partners is Gibraltar's largest legal firm. Sir Joshua Hassan, the former chief minister of Gibraltar, and Chaim Levy are the firm's main equity partners. Sir Joshua Hassan served as chief minister of Gibraltar for 20 years. Of an electorate of 17,000, it is obvious that the Jewish population, totaling 600, had little to do with his popularity. Sir Joshua Hassan speaks about serving the public as a Jew.
The governor was the one who had the right to fix dates for elections and so on. He would make sure that they were fixed in a day that would not upset my Jewish calendar. When you talk about official functions, if you talk about our dietary laws, for example, well, I make known everywhere I went what my limitations were in that respect, and what I ate and what I didn't eat. Whether they had realized the fact that I don't have shellfish, for example, or not, they served shellfish and something else, and I played about with the plate and I didn't eat it. And I left it, and somebody noticed it and wondered why. And when they realized that they had put their foot into it, they apologized.
Chaim Levy is an attorney who the local press have called the brains behind Gibraltar's finance center. As the community president, he has earned his reputation as a politician by uniting a split Jewish community when he took office in 1983. Chaim describes the Gibraltarian Jew.
He's unique. He's not Spanish, he's not English. He's perhaps the old type of Sephardic Jew who happened to live in Spain in the 15th century and then moved around the world in different centuries when he was asked to move by the different governments. But he's still that type of Jew, a Jew who is very simple in his approach to God, and therefore very simple in his approach to man. A very charitable Jew, tolerant, friendly, warm, above all very hospitable.
Chaim is the president of a democratically elected managing board of the Jewish community. The board consists of 11 men who are some of the community's largest donors. In principle, the board makes policy decisions democratically. In practice, however, some board members admit that between lobbying and politics, most community policy decisions are made by Chaim, in conjunction with David Ben Naim, the community vice president. David runs a family-owned car dealership.
the Jewish community of Gibraltar represents a spectrum of world Jewry. You have Jews here with all tendencies, say that more to the right, more to the center, more to the left, but thank God there is no conservative, reform or liberal element which could cause divisions.
It's not a thing of Gibraltar that people will look at the other one for what they look at each other for what they are. They'll pick out the good. Gibraltar is a place like that all the people will pick out the good in each and every individual.
90% of Gibraltar Jews are religious Jews as opposed to Orthodox. There's a large proportion of Gibraltar Jews who are Orthodox, but I would say that most Gibraltar Jews are religious because they're very God-fearing people, even though they're not strictly speaking Orthodox, some of them. A religious person is a person who realizes that God has a part to play in his life, but he's not necessarily Orthodox in that he doesn't necessarily keep all the laws that have to be kept.
The Jewish community, for its small numbers, provides some excellent resources. The Jewish Social and Culture Club houses a Jewish English book library, audio cassettes of lectures on Judaism from all over the world, a video library of lectures, documentaries, and children's films, all pertaining to Jewish education and history, even a Jewish pub. The Jewish home was donated by the late John D. McIntosh, a non-Jew who donated similar facilities to the Church of England and to the Roman Catholics. A comfortable facility which can accommodate 12 residents. Each room has a terrace with a view of the bay. Kosher meals and warm employees help to create a home atmosphere. Two kosher stores import products from all over Europe, the United States, and Israel. A full-service kosher bakery and confectionery run by brother and sister Sarah and Jackie Ben Zimra. This bakery has been in the family since 1820 and was started by the Ben Zimra's great-grandfather. It is probably the only place in the world where you can see an Arab, a Jew, and a Christian all waiting online together to buy bread on a Sunday morning. Unlike the kosher food stores who cater almost exclusively to the Jewish community, the bakery competes in the open non-Jewish market and sells kosher bread and cakes at the same price as the other bakeries in Gibraltar. With the additional expense of kosher ingredients, sifting the flour, and closing on the holidays when his competitors stay open, I asked Jackie how he is able to compete in the open market.
By working very hard. By working very hard.
It is not likely that Amars will go another generation in the family, producing kosher products for the community.
I'd like my son to be something else. He's a baker. He's very hard work.
The Brit Milah is a ceremony which takes place when a Jewish baby boy is 8 days old and involves the circumcision and naming of the baby. The Tefillim, more commonly known as a bar mitzvah, is a ceremony which in Gibraltar takes place at the age of 12, usually a few months before the boy's 13th birthday. It is at the age of 13 a Jewish boy is considered an adult member of the congregation. Abraham Benisso is one of Gibraltar's world-class Hazanim. He has traveled the world singing in synagogues and cantorial festivals. This synagogue is called Nefesot Yehuda. Nefesot Yehuda was built in the year 1800. The palm tree existed before the synagogue was built. Originally, the teva, or podium, was in the center, traditional of Sephardi synagogues. In 1906, the synagogue, which was made of wood, was severely burnt. An Italian architect was commissioned to redesign the synagogue, based on the design of the Florence synagogue. The teva was moved to the front of the synagogue, and beautiful marble replaced the wood. This design is not typical of either Sephardi or Ashkenazi synagogues. Misad Bolilo, the Jewish community's honorary registrar of births, marriages, and deaths, and Joshua Morache used the cemetery as a source of research to piece together legend and fact to recreate the community's past.
There is a legend about this place that goes that there were already 5 rabbis buried within this enclosure.
and on a Friday, one sixth rabbi died in Gibraltar, and they were very pressed for time to come and bury him before the Saturday Shabbat came in. And the legend goes that he prayed up to heaven and to the rabbis who were buried here, and he pleaded to them, look, if this rabbi who has died today is worthy of being buried with you, then make room for him. And it is said that when they came later with the body to carry out the burial, that miraculously there was enough room to bury him within this plot.
There is sketchy evidence that indicates that the Jews may have been in Gibraltar as early as the 7th century. During the Spanish Inquisition in 1492, under the decree of banishment, Jews had to either convert to Catholicism or leave Spain. Many Jews went to Portugal, where they were expelled a few years later in 1497. Others went to Morocco and Turkey. A number of Jews from Cordoba who converted to Catholicism to avoid persecution, Moranos, bought a lease on Gibraltar from the Count of Medinaceli. 6,000 settled here for 6 years. At that time, the King of Spain, fearing a new invasion through Gibraltar, entered the city and slaughtered the entire population. The current community traces its roots back to 1704, nearly 300 years ago, when the British occupied Gibraltar. Supplies were short, and Gibraltar was subsequently made a free port. The British garrison desperately needed supplies and building materials, which was provided by Jewish merchants who engaged in trade from Morocco. Many Jews settled in Gibraltar. They came from Barbary, Leghorn, Portugal, Holland, England, Turkey, and Italy. In only a few years, they represented half the civilian population. As the War of Spanish Succession came to an end in 1712, British forces were withdrawn from the peninsula. In the Treaty of Utrecht, signed in 1713, which formally acknowledged British succession of Gibraltar, the Spanish, in their hatred for the Jews, demanded an inclusion of a clause forbidding Jews or Moors from living or even entering Gibraltar. The fact remained that Jewish merchants were too important to the garrison to do away with completely. The Spanish consul in Gibraltar became aware of the substantial Jewish presence, which was estimated at 300. The presence of Jews was a violation of the Treaty of Utrecht, and a formal complaint was filed by the Spanish ambassador in London. Jewish life was centered in a synagogue located on Calle de Juan de Sierra, now Engineers Lane, most likely the site of the present synagogue, Shar HaShamayim. Shar HaShamayim, known as a Synagogue Grande, or Great Synagogue, is Gibraltar's oldest synagogue. At one time, this synagogue housed a mikveh, and all community affairs were managed from these premises. In 1724, Isaac Neto, who may have been the leader of the Jewish community at the time, was granted a piece of waste ground on which he built a large room which the Jews used as a synagogue. This piece of land was entered through Surfates Passage, which for years was called Synagogue Lane. In 1766, there was a torrential downpour which completely destroyed Shar HaShamayim. An additional piece of land was purchased that was adjacent to the original structure, and a more elegant synagogue was constructed with an entrance on Engineers Lane. The building, or at least the roof, was burnt during the Great Siege. The roof was repaired and the beautiful Gothic ceilings date to 1812. The Jews were finally expelled from Gibraltar. Some went to England, but most went to Tetuan. Other sources indicate that a large community still remained in Gibraltar. There is no doubt, however, that those who were expelled quickly returned and were here during the first siege of 1727. In 1728, the Spanish gave way to Gibraltar and only a few Jews and Genoese remained. The need for building materials and supplies continued. In 1729, a treaty which was negotiated by a Jew was signed between the colonial government and the Moroccan Sultan, giving Jews and Moors permission to enter Gibraltar for 30 days, but forbidding them from residing there. The Esnoga Chica, or small synagogue, called Eitz Chaim, was a yeshiva and opened for service in 1759. In 1776, the year of American independence, Gibraltar consisted of 3,000 people, 1,000 of which were Jews. Between 1779 and 1783 was the Great Siege. It was a final effort by the Spaniards to recapture the rock by force. Many Jews were decorated as heroes. In the 1790s, Aaron Cardoza, a shipping magnate, emerged as a powerful economic and political force in Gibraltar. His home was donated to Gibraltar and is now the City Hall. His wealth, generosity, and selfless dedication to Gibraltar became his trademark. He gained the confidence and friendship of Lord Nelson, who said upon his parting words, "If I survive, Cardoza, you shall not remain in this dark corner of the world." In 1804, Aaron Cardoza resigned the leadership of the Hebrew community, citing his poor health. The 19th century gave way to more prosperity, and the increase in the Jewish population gave rise to another synagogue, La Noga Flamenca, the Flemish synagogue, called Nefesot Yehuda. Jewish landowners built huge apartment blocks, and their names were given to the streets, as still can be seen today. In 1820, a Abudaram synagogue was built. The chief rabbi of Gibraltar, Dayan Shlomo Abudaram, was a Kabbalist who lived in the lower floor and had a yeshiva, an institute of Jewish study, on the upper floor of what is now only part of the synagogue building. Dayan Abudaram became ill. His students prayed for his recovery. When he did recover, he built this synagogue and gave it to the congregation. Documentation indicates that this synagogue may have been born out of a dispute that took place at Shar HaShemayim synagogue up the road. Abraham Abudaram, Dayan Abudaram's son, presented this crown to his synagogue. It is the only synagogue in Gibraltar which is owned entirely by the descendants of the original owners. The silver is considered to be one of the finest collections of Judaica of this kind in all of Europe, perhaps the world. In 1849, the reins of government were taken over by Major General Sir Robert Gardiner, a bigoted man who, among all his different prejudices and dislikes, hated the Jews. He made every effort to reinstate Article 10 of the Treaty of Utrecht, which forbid Jews and Moors from living in Gibraltar. Sir Robert left, and the Jews regained their rights. In 1859, over 3,000 Jews from the Barbary coast took refuge in Gibraltar from the war between Spain and Morocco. They camped in tents on the east side of the rock. The community fees were raised to help them. Tragically, one of the Jewish refugees died of hunger, which shocked the community into forming a charitable organization to ensure that this tragedy would never, ever occur again. This was the birth of what is now called the Hebrew Poor Fund, a charitable institute that operates independent of the managing board. The trustees are responsible only to the courts. The assets are said to be in excess of £1 million. In the 1900s, the Jews did not prosper as in earlier years. The big donors and family fortunes faded away, making maintenance of the community institutions difficult. Between 1942 and 1945, during World War II, Gibraltar's civilian population was evacuated out of fear of a German attack. The Jewish community resettled in Madeira under the spiritual leadership of Rabbi David Ben Naim. Many families went to England, some of whom settled there and did not return. All of the community's Torah scrolls were stored under one of the synagogues and were regrettably destroyed by dampness. Many of the community's historic photos and documents were lost as a result of pillaging that took place in homes and businesses. The Talmud Torah, now just over 100 years old, was built by Jews on government land. The school is government-run, yet it caters to the educational needs of Jewish children. Being a government school, it is open to all religions. 25% of the students who attend are not Jewish. In the morning, secular or English studies are taught by mostly non-Jewish teachers to all the children. In the afternoon, the secular staff takes a low profile as the rabbi and his staff moves in to teach Jewish studies to the Jewish children. While the Jewish children attend their religion classes, the non-Jewish children receive concentrated attention from the English staff. Malia Abudaram, the headmistress, has been with the school for the last 30 years.
To begin with, it's a very unique school in that it's the only primary school in Gibraltar, and we cater for children between 4 plus and 12. So that means that we keep the children longer in the school than most schools in Gibraltar. This school at the moment is catering for 102 children. And at the end of those 8 years, we know the children quite well, and we know the way they tick and where their strengths and where their weaknesses are.
The standard is pretty high. Like, these children compare very well with any other school in Egypt. If anything, above.
From the age of 2 to 4, Jewish children attend a privately operated nursery school. Jewish children learn the English and Hebrew alphabet, paint, and play games. Daily prayer is an important aspect of the day. Jewish values such as charity are taught from a very young age. Gibraltar is one of the only places in the world that many religions live together in peace.
Gibraltar is, and still is, but at the time certainly was more, a model of how many faiths and communities can live together in peace and amity, each one respecting the views of the other without any interference.
In Gibraltar, we lived very happy, very united, all like a family, Jews and Catholic and Methodist. We all get on very well.
We went out for a meal last night. They had their food, we had our food. We know they don't eat the same food as us, but we respect it. It's part of life here because you grow with it. So I don't think that being a Jew or anything else makes any difference. To me, it's made a difference in the school. But again, I'm a difficult person. I admit it.
This is a kollel. These men come from England, Israel, and America and are paid a very good salary to learn Torah, the Jewish teachings, on a full-time basis. They learn the text with partners in the oral tradition. Learning orally is the only way to reach a true understanding of the text. The community receives over 100 hours a week of Jewish education from these men in the form of adult education and after-school lessons for the high school boys. There are 613 commandments in Jewish law, and the Jewish community is becoming more orthodox in their observance.
There is no doubt that there is a religious revival in the community, and that the community is moving more towards an orthodox framework. But I believe that this is something which is happening around the world, not only to Jews. It's happening to Muslims, it's happening to Christians and to everybody else.
I get a feeling of a more religious sort of atmosphere in the school. I like it, you know. I welcome that kind of, I like the school, the Hebrew school, to look like a Hebrew school.
I think that you've become more orthodox lately. When I came to this school 18 years ago, for example, the children didn't wear the kibbas all the day. They wore them only for Hebrew. I think that you've become more religious.
I see the community nowadays getting a little too fundamentalist, getting too inward-looking, and it is not either the style or in consonance with the history of the community in Gibraltar to be like that.
As the community becomes more religiously observant and committed to Jewish law, the community faces the challenge of maintaining its historical good relations with the larger Gibraltar community.
We have had complaints lately that the children that are moving into the school are keeping very much to themselves. And there is a more religious, sort of a strong religious element coming into the community. And therefore children are wearing, you can see them, there are more children wearing kippahs, and according to the headmaster there, they seem to bunch together.
I advocate a much more intensive Jewish education for the Jewish children, but that does not mean that my board advocates separatism or indeed antagonism towards other communities.
Yeah, but after 6 years in school, like, the girls took the hint, they didn't ask me anymore to come to parties, and they just took it for granted that we were school friends, and outside school, like, I spoke to them, but that was it. I didn't mix with them, because once you start mixing them, you have problems everywhere, so.
The community is now less and less, apart from business transactions, which is normal, socially they are less and less mixing with the rest of Gibraltar, and that is bad.
We mix a lot with the non-Jewish people, so we go out. It's difficult because it might lead to other things, but
I think that we create quite a bit of racism amongst ourselves by sticking to ourselves so much.
youngsters socializing, obviously, what it leads to intermarriage. It's a main problem.
Clive Levy, a local Jewish artist, shares his perceptions.
What I was saying is that when I was 15 and 16, there wasn't so much Jewish religious activities sort of thing, you know, like now. Like we didn't have any sort of guidance. Like we just went to Hebrew school, and when we finished at 12 o'clock, that was it. No more Hebrew school. We went to the comprehensive, where it was mixed, no, all religions. And that's where you got lost in a way. I mean, it depends on what you mean by lost, no? But most of my friends of that age married out, of my year sort of thing, no? Including my brother and other friends of mine, no? But now I think it's changed a bit in a way, by the community getting more religious and more sort of new programs coming into the scene. It's affecting in a way the new generation, in the way of their thinking. I think we just have to be normal, you know, like love thy neighbor as thyself. The whole world is thy neighbor, and we just have to love them all. And if we love them all, I don't think anything wrong is going to happen to us, you know. I mean, you have to be religious, but at the same time, you have to be good to your fellow man. I think it's the same thing, really. Once you are religious, I mean, really, true religious is loving everyone. And
Loving everyone and close community relations also has its drawbacks. There is hardly a family here not affected by the calamity of intermarriage. The sad fact is, many of the Jewish community's founding fathers' names have perpetuated through the centuries, but those who bear them today, due to intermarriage, are no longer Jewish.
Mitzvah and circumcisions, so then we want weddings, no? Come on then, what you waiting for?
Challenges is how a religious situation can survive in a very restricted, very small place like Gibraltar, isolated from the hinterland, without easy access to other communities which are equally religious.
As the Jewish community enters the 90s, it faces the challenge of fighting intermarriage by increasing education and standards of observance, maintaining the delicate balance between those who are more and those who are less observant to avoid a split in the community, while at the same time maintaining the historical good relations with the larger Gibraltar community.
But I like the Jewish community of Gibraltar. Friendship.
I like the closeness. I like relationships with people. I like close relationships. I like to get to know people well. This community is one that opens up to you and is very friendly, and there is no reservation.
It's a safe place.
It's history, it's unity. Big question, you know.